One of the most powerful broadcasts that I've done since Inquisition Update began on December 9th of last year. I set forth for you the reality in America, which doesn't seem to have an impact among the American people, even among those who know what I teach, who have done the research for themselves and found out the truth that I'm telling. The Vatican controls our government. The Vatican's responsible for the illegal Roman Catholic invaders that are coming to this country. That Nancy Pelosi is a papist, welcoming them to this country, illegal or not. And she called it our country, hers and theirs. Still, no impact. They avoided the Roman Catholic issue on Fox News when they discussed that video, that all-telling video. Let me ask you a question. I want to impress upon you the seriousness of our error. What if Rupert Murdoch was Muslim? What if Knight of St. Gregory, Knight of Malta, Jesuit-controlled, the most powerful media magnate in this country, was Muslim? What if Nancy Pelosi was Muslim? What if Nancy Pelosi were in a Muslim church talking to illegal Muslim invaders and welcoming them to Protestant USA, and she called it our country, hers and theirs, not ours? What if the white Pope, when he came to the United States, what if he were Muslim white Pope? What if he had stood in front of the ecumenical Protestants in this country and called for full communion? What if 8 months later the black Pope was Muslim? The head of the intelligence and military wing of Islam had come to this country and called for martyrdom. Perspective's changing a bit, isn't it? Because you know a little bit about Islam, don't you? How is it that you know a little bit about Islam? I'll answer that question later. What if the black Pope, who we know to be Catholic, who we know his history, but can't react to it, just seemingly can't get off the couch to say anything about it, what if the black Pope had been in San Francisco at a Muslim university among radical Muslims calling for martyrdom? What is the equivalent of martyrdom in Islam? Jihad. What is martyrdom among Roman Catholics? Inquisition. But somehow Inquisition just doesn't seem to have the same impact as jihad. What if our government was headed not by Knights of Malta, not by Knights of Columbus, not by Opus Dei, and not by Shriner Freemasons, but were headed by Islamic imams? What if the overwhelming majority of Congress were Muslim instead of Catholic? And what if the remaining members of Congress were ecumenical Muslims in training? What if it was Muslim churches all over the country giving refuge to invading Muslim hordes coming across our border in every port. And the border with Muslim Mexico was wide open. What if we saw our own Muslim government prosecuting immigration officers, Campion, and the other guy, whose name escapes me right now, for preventing radical Muslims from coming across our border? What if Pastor Baldwin, Bob Barr, and Ron Paul were being declared potential domestic terrorists, militia-related domestic terrorists, by a Muslim U.S. government? What if we just imagine in our mind that everybody in this country who's Catholic, who has any authority in this country, was Muslim? Would that change our perspective? Yet I've proven in this broadcast since December 9th of last year, Inquisition Update, that Catholicism historically has proven itself to be an exponentially higher threat than Islam in the world. What if President George W. Bush, a knight of the Eucharist, were a knight of Muhammad? What if Dick Cheney, who guided the airplanes into the towers, who gave the orders, according to Norman Mineta's testimony before the 9/11 Commission, what if it was revealed that Dick Cheney wasn't a Knight of Malta, but was Muslim? And he was the one that failed to call off the attack on the 9/11, on the Twin Towers in New York City. We know him to be Catholic, but what if he was Muslim? What if George J. Tenet were not a Knight of Islam, the director of CIA who oversaw 9/11 and orchestrated it, the technical aspects of it? What if he were Muslim? What if Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense for the United States, was not a Knight of Malta, was not a Catholic, but he was a Muslim? What if the Knights of Malta were the Knights of Muhammad? What if the Knights of Columbus were the Knights of Jihad? What if Opus Dei were some other military and intelligence, an armed, sovereign military order of Islam? What if Freemasonry was Muslim? And I'll just tell you, Shriner Freemasonry is Muslim. Why do you think they wear the fez? Why do you think they wear an Arab scimitar on the front of their fez and the half moon and the star emblems of Islam on their fezes, openly in public in this country? The bloody red fez of the Shriner Freemasons. What if they were Muslim? They are Muslim. Now, do you know? Let me just go one bit further here while I've got some more time. What if the bloody Council of Trent had been called by Muslims? What if Pope Pius IX was Muslim And he wrote the encyclical and syllabus of error of 1864. What if Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy had been assassinated by the Knights of Islam? And now let me ask you one very, very, very important question. What if 9/11 had been done by Muslims? We know what would have happened. This whole nation would have gone to war just as quickly as we could have mustered it. Because that's what we did. We went to war against Islam. Not against terror. That's an idiot term. It doesn't educate anybody about anything. As fast as we could muster it, we grew the best strength that we could put forward, and we went to war against Islam. Remember shock and awe? But who really did 9/11? Was it the Knights of Islam? Was it the Knights of Muhammad? No. It was the Knights of Malta, the Knights of Columbus, Opus Dei, and Freemasonry. Our own government did 9/11 through the Roman Catholic Knights who run our government. And they blamed it on the Muslims. 19 towel-headed camel jockeys that couldn't fly Cessna 152s. And just like that, just on the mere accusation that it was Muslims who did 9/11, never mind they didn't prove it, never mind there is irrefutable evidence that our own government did it, we went to war. And if you're caught saying that 9/11 was an inside job, you're a domestic terrorist. If you say that the Vatican was responsible for 9/11, you're a domestic terrorist. But the Vatican did do 9/11 through our papist government. But what would it have been if it had been a Muslim government? And it was Catholics who did 9/11, because they did do 9/11. I hope I'm making my point. The black pope is not Muslim, he's Catholic. The white pope is not Muslim, he's Catholic. The President of the United States is not Muslim, he's Catholic. The Speaker of the House is not Muslim, he's Catholic. She's Catholic. They're all Catholics. And they're Catholics coming across the southern border of the United States. And they're lethally more dangerous than Muslims. Exponentially more dangerous than Muslims. Catholics comprise 25 to 30% of the population of this country. Our government is entirely Catholic, and those that aren't are ecumenical. Islam only produces a fraction of it only represents a fraction of the population in this country compared to Catholics, and none of the power. None of it. But we're all scared to death of Muslims, aren't we? And if those Mexicans were coming across the border were Muslims, we would be in civil war tomorrow morning. Most likely before noon today. We fear the Muslims because we believe the lie that the Muslims did 9/11. We believe the lie that the Muslims have done all the terrorism in the world. Maybe we better find out if the Vatican did all the terror in the world. We already know they did 9/11. I think it's time for God's people to reframe the debate and give a true perspective of who it is who is invading this country, who is controlling this country. And we better reassess the danger of that threat, because it is infinitely more threatening than Islam. Infinitely more threatening than Islam. And we have the history of our own fathers and mothers to testify to the lethality, the incalculable lethality of the Vatican, through the Protestant Reformation and the Inquisition, through the Crusades, through all the wars of history. And most importantly, we've got the testimony of God's holy word, which says she, being the Roman Catholic Church, is guilty of the blood of, is drunk with the blood of saints, of prophets, and all the slain of the earth. Where does it use similar terminology to describe the Muslims? Where does our Bible use similar language to describe the Muslims? But you fear those Muslims, don't you? If a Muslim shook a scimitar at you, you'd be ready to go to war, wouldn't you? But a Catholic doesn't have to. He runs your school board. He runs your city council. He runs your police department. He runs your water department. He runs your church. He runs the government and the seminaries. And he controls the borders. And he lets Mexican crusaders come across this country. And he lets the Pope come here and call for full communion. And he lets the black Pope call for martyrdom. And you sit there. You don't comprehend. And you keep repeating this worn-out oxymoron called illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, never mentioning that they're Roman Catholic. We are our own worst enemies because we understand what's going on in this country, and yet we use their benign terms. And therefore, we deceive ourselves, we disarm ourselves, and we go right back to the commercials on the television. How many of your state senators are Roman Catholic? I'll tell you who they are in Iowa. They're both Roman Catholic, both of them. And they serve the Pope, both in Iowa and in Washington. There's a Roman Catholic majority on the Supreme Court, 6-3. They serve the Pope whenever they can get by with it. That's why they can't make Barack Obama prove his citizenship. They don't want anybody to know. Constitution be damned. Just imagine if all these Catholics were Muslims. Only a fraction of the power and influence and lethality of Roman Catholicism. You would be out of your mind in fear. You would be ready to go to war. An all-out civil war. By noon today. But I can spend 6 months on this broadcast detailing the bloody history of the Vatican, detailing bulls and encyclicals damning every Protestant liberty in this country, swearing that the Pope has divine right to rule this country and will, no matter what it takes. I can read for you the Jesuit oath, the means by which they accomplish this global Holy Roman Empire, which the Bible predicts, which Protestants have known for at least 2 generations. The last empire will be a revived Roman Empire. But when I talk to them about it and show them, they don't comprehend the lethality of it. They don't utter a whimper. But if I staged all of my discussions, all of my research, everything I write, everything I do, everything I disclose on this broadcast, and they were all Muslims I was talking about, you would fully comprehend, wouldn't you? Are you going to continue calling them illegal immigrants? An oxymoron that has no meaning, that has no integral, alarming meaning, that is as benign as a pancake? Are you going to continue using the benign term illegal aliens? Never mind what religion they are. Are you still going to keep talking about them raising the Mexican flag over an inverted and subservient American flag without ever telling the world that they are Catholics? Are you going to continue to be the source of your own self-deception? Or are you going to reframe the debate and bring a true perspective to your communications and your emails and your phone calls? Don't be the source of your own self-deception. Listen carefully to the terms that Knight of St. Gregory, Knight of Malta, charges his Roman Catholic anchor people to use on Fox News, the other Catholic channel. Because his business is to hide from you the reality that Pope Pius IX's encyclical and syllabus of error is being imposed in this Protestant land by Catholics and ecumenical Protestants together. He's going to make sure you never catch on because he's going to define the terms. Our government is going to define the terms, and that's why they chose benign terms like illegal immigrant and illegal alien, so that it never enters your mind that religion has one thing to do about it. Never mind that religion had everything to do with the slaughter and extermination of the Waldenses and the Albigenses and the Orthodox Christians and the Jews and the Lutherans and the Baptists and the Seventh-day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses in Europe during World War I and World War II. Never mind that religion has been the key element of every military conflict in modern history. Never mind that the Bible says the earth is soaked with the blood of the martyrs and the saints and the prophets at the hand of the whore of Rome. Think how you would react if it were Muslims instead of Catholics in this country that are doing these things. I hope I have reframed the debate and given a true perspective of what is actually taking place in our dying our Protestant constitutional republic. If you have a King James Bible, read it. Make your peace with Jesus, because only He can save you from the wrath to come. My name's Tom Press. You've been listening to Inquisition Update. See you tomorrow.